y'all, welcome and welcome back. It feels like forever since I've sat down and just told you guys some scary stories, so I'm happy to be back. Now, typically I pick like 4 or 5 stories and read them to you guys, but I actually got sent a rather long one. So this video is going to be dedicated to just one follower's stories, and let's get into it. As always, long or small stories are always welcome, and you can send them to the email in the description below. I would love to read them. Just make sure you put in the description bar or somewhere at the top YouTube so I know where they go. Or they could end up on TikTok. Well, it'll still get read, but like they might end up somewhere else. I just realized my cat's little tails look like shark fins just wandering around me. Speaking of sharks, what are they doing lately? Have y'all seen that there's just a ton of shark attacks? Okay, I'm sorry. Guess we won't talk about sharks. Squeak took offense. Let's get into these stories. I have 4 stories that come to mind when I think paranormal, but before that, some context about me. I've always believed in ghosts, cryptids, and the paranormal. That's most likely because my dad also believed in it. We would stay up real late and watch those cheesy documentaries on National Geographic about Bigfoot, Mothman, or my dad's favorite, aliens. I live in southeastern Minnesota for context. I've only camped around that area or up in Canada. I have hiked around in other states though. I have a few friends with experiences that are mostly ghosts, but one friend swears that he saw a windy boy. I'll try and get her to send you an email if she wants to. I would love that. I've been told by multiple people that my energy feels like there is a block, a band, or that my energy is clear. I was told that it feels like a protection word or spell, honestly I'm not sure what to call it, and that it's a very old one, most likely an ancestor of mine. My dad has told me that he thought my maternal great-grandmother was a witch, that she spent a lot of time in her shed and had some Irish words on top of that her husband had made. I even had my little brother checked, and people said that he felt nearly identical to me. I was told that if I wanted to be able to feel or experience things, I could try breaking that protection or band as we called it. But they suggested I don't rip it off like a band-aid, only tear it slowly so I'm not overwhelmed. Here's the first story. My first paranormal experience happened to me when I was either late elementary or late middle school. I was at my dad's house with my little brother for my dad's every other weekend visitations. My dad had decided to replace our beds that weekend with new bunk beds and had only built the bottom bunk by the time we came over. I was getting too old as a girl to sleep with their parents, so my dad had us 2 kids sleep in his room, while he slept on the single bed. It was late, I'm not sure what time, but I assume I'd stayed up late to watch reruns of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or a documentary. This would have been around 2007 to 2010. I've never had sleep paralysis, even now as a 27-year-old, but that night I'm woken up by something. I've noticed that the TV is turned to static and there's no sound playing. I'm sleeping on my belly, head on a pillow, and something just feels off. In the corner of my eye, I can see something standing in the doorway. It was completely black. I don't mean the skin color, but the texture. It was like a shadow. It stood there huge and gangly, but also proportional. Its head touched the top of the door frame. Its shoulders and arms touched the sides of the door, and I couldn't see its legs because of the way I was laying. I'm not sure how long I stayed frozen. I don't know if I actually couldn't move or I was just too scared to. Then this thing slowly moved, and it reached its arms out and touched my foot from heel to toe. I can finally move, and I'm yanking my foot back under the blanket. I curl up, covering my face with my blanket, despite hating covering my face back then. I lay there like that for what feels like 15 minutes until I finally peek out and it's gone. The TV's now playing Roseanne on low. I turn on the lamp on the bedside table. I look at my little brother who has slept through that entire thing. I'm not sure what got me to wake him up. He would have had to be 5 to 8 at the time, but that was always my closest brother. He grunts awake and stares at me, and I say, "There's something in the house. It touched my foot." He looks annoyed that I woke him up, and he goes right back to bed. I don't want to jump to what I saw or experienced as a ghost because while I was raised by a supernatural believing father, I was also raised by a non-believing mother. I proceeded to turn on every light in the home and check all doors to make sure nothing was open and out of place. Why I didn't wake up the 3 sleeping adults in the house, I will never know. The way it touched your foot. Okay, I've always had a fear of that since Paranormal Activity. I don't know if you guys remember watching that as a kid, but I remember the woman was like sleeping with her foot out of the blanket and the thing yanked her out of the bed, and I have literally never slept. Like I will sleep, I will keep my feet, it makes no sense, but I will sleep and my feet have to be under the covers, but I'll like pop my knee out, like I'll curve my leg and let my knee out to get some air. I won't let my feet out. I don't know, I apparently just think it can't grab my knee. I don't know, but I won't, and now I won't again, ever. Ugh, I don't like it. All right, second story. Ow, Pete! Ow! I got a new tattoo on the back of my arm, and my cat just bulldozed her hard head into it. Oh, God. I took a few seconds and regained myself. All right, let's get into their next story. This happened when I was between Jesus. Pete's big head knocked every bit of sense out of me. This happened when I was between 22 and 24. It would have been right before or is at the beginning of a COVID lockdown. It did cause a breakdown. Let me restart this. What is happening to my brain? This happened when I was between 22 and 24. It would have been right before or at the beginning of the COVID lockdowns. I was at my best friend's apartment. She's always been very sensitive to the paranormal. We all call her a medium. She sees, hears, and can talk to them. When we were young and stupid, we used to play with homemade Ouija boards. This is more her story to tell than mine, honestly. But because these things have always followed her, she's always kind of a powerhouse to the point where I could see things and hear things, for example, shadow people, when I was around her. My friend's apartment complex was awesome. It had an outdoor pool that would close at dusk, but had a 24/7 gym. It had an indoor pool and a sauna. The gym and sauna were small and tiny, but the pool was huge. It went to 9 feet deep. My bestie, let's call her A, and I have always been a fish. We would often swim 2 to 4 times a week, even if that meant walking back to her building in the dead of winter with wet hair after we were done. We started swimming at around 10 or 11 that night because both of us worked till then. The two of us were excited to jump in the pool because it was just the two of us. The large friend group at the time was either busy or still working, or working early in that morning and had to cancel. We walked through a building that connects to that one but doesn't open from the other side, which means we can walk to the pool fast. But the way back took 3 times as long because we needed to walk around the back side and from the main doors. We immediately rushed to the pool, dumping our things on the table, and luckily after midnight there aren't a lot of people in the pool. We have occasionally shared it with teenagers or seen a late-night gym user through the glass window. Let me describe this pool building because it will make more sense later. There are 3 main rooms. Changing rooms, the office, and the pool are all attached. No one could get into the second floor where people would hold parties during the day and the office, so the lights would be turned off on the second floor, just showing a dark area with tables and chairs. It wasn't dark enough to not make out shapes, and if someone was up there, you would be able to notice. To enter the pool building, you need a key to enter the gates. Then you use the key again to enter the building and let yourself into the gym and walk through it to the men's and women's locker rooms. We entered ours together and changed in the middle of the room since the locker room was incredibly tiny. It was either changing out in the open or going into the sauna and changing into a swimsuit while getting hot and sticky. Then we would head out through a small hallway that would open left where the entire friend group would be since they had to use a key to get back inside. So to save the hassle of figuring out who has the pool key, we would prop it open with a plastic white chair. Since it was only 2 of us, we didn't do that, and we passed the entrance of the men's locker room and head inside. We throw our stuff onto the tables, and my friend pulls her phone out, puts music on it, and places it on the chair next to the pool's edge. On the opposite side of that room, near the deep end, is an industrial-sized fan that my friend turns on before we jump in. We spent a good hour cannonballing, and A trying to teach me how to sink to the bottom of the pool. Eventually, A wants to sink herself and gets out of the pool to turn the fan off because it was getting cold. The lights always turn off around 2 or 3 in the morning, just leaving the lights under the water. A turns the fan off, pauses her music, and drinks from her water bottle. I asked for her to hand me mine, and I gulp some down before passing it back, and she jumps back into the water, and she drags me to the shallow end. My friend is a music nerd. A loves to sing in the pool building because of the large ceilings and empty space. It echoes back to us, and the windows are very thick. So unless you were banging on them, you couldn't hear what was going on inside or outside. We spent a good chunk of time just singing and belting out songs. I don't remember which songs, but she was obsessed with show tunes and still is. So it was either Hamilton, Les Mis, or Phantom of the Opera. I only know Hamilton, so I stay quiet watching her sing as if she was a siren. We're cradling each other in the shallow end, our feet are touching, and we're just doing something that we call a teeter-totter, where we stand fully still and teeter back and forth in the water as we just talk. Occasionally, one of us would balance our feet and spin the other super fast like a teacup ride. During the entire time, we were seeing shadow people on the second floor shifting and moving. We know it's not a real person because the good thing about the glass wall is that we can see if anyone comes in and out. I'm teasing A about it, asking if she sees them because I like talking about the paranormal. A does not because she says they only bother you when you are with me. They stay when you leave. You can go home. But then I didn't realize that you actually should ignore them. That's when I noticed something weird. We started near the very front end of the pool, the shallowest part, and while we were spinning around, we hadn't done it at least 15 minutes. We normally stay in the same area where we teeter, stay within 5 feet of our original starting area. Now, though, we were in the deepest drop, as if we were holding each other's hands but standing up and walking ourselves back to the other side of the pool. We decided to float around and sing again, so we're floating, and when I lift my head just enough to see where I am, because the ceiling all looks the same, I realize I'm being pulled into the deep side of the pool again. If you have ever just floated around, you normally don't go super far unless you move your arms and legs. But yet we have moved halfway through the pool in a matter of seconds. And then I feel it. My friend has stopped singing and she is staring at the pool. Not at the pool, into the pool, at the bottom, under the water. I stand up and walk backward. I look at A, and it looks as if she's trying to figure out something or learn something. And that's when I whisper, something was trying to drag me into the deep end. She nods, and from her look, I know not to say anything else because talking about it brings it. So I move until I'm practically pressed against my friend's back and I'm hiding, because despite loving to watch videos and witnessing stuff, I scream and become a scaredy cat. A huffs and tells me to get back to swimming and don't go into the deep end. So we're practicing handstands, and the entire time we're still getting pulled into the deep end. We're back to floating next to each other talking about dinner because it may be 3 a.m. It's our dinner time now because we don't wake up until after 12. We're thinking of ordering from a pizza place that is open very late when we hear it. Both of our heads snap to the only side of the building that has a wall where the sound of a small, tiny feet hitting the tile as if a young child had gotten out of the pool. We hear it running, despite knowing the rules of the pool. Then a childish, high-pitched giggle rings out through the pool, hitting the ceiling and echoing back. This happened in a matter of seconds, but it felt like it lasted for minutes. I never hear things. Not like this normally. It's a whisper or something that doesn't sound fully audible. I don't remember which one of us says it, but we decide to say what we heard, and what comes out is wet steps, running, girlish giggle. So we both know we didn't just hear anything, and it wasn't like the sound came from outside or in a different room because of how the glass holds sound in. The office is locked, and we wouldn't have been able to hear someone that loud from the opposite side of the room through a door. We looked at each other like it's time to get out of here. A and I pull ourselves up the side of the pool instead of going to the steps or ladder, and don't bother drying or changing out. We just grab our stuff and hightail it out. Luckily, it was warm, so we were fine running in just our swimsuits back to our place. That's so scary. The fact that, like, they're usually not able to fully experience things, and then that is terrifying. But what makes me think... I'm just confused because, like, was it the little girl pulling you guys, or was there something else and the little girl was, like, trying to save you? I don't know. It's scary. All right, let's get into their third story. This happened either the same summer or the summer before. I was working at a Subway in my tiny town that I had been living in for 2 years. I'd planned on going home and sleeping after my shift ended, and I closed up. So I was the closer, so I put the food away, wiped down everything, finished the dishes, swept, mopped, and counted the register. The store just closed, and I just locked the front door, and I'm counting my register, making sure nothing huge is missing. So I'm counting the bills since all I have left to do is this, and mopping when I catch something out of the side of my eye. It's completely bulky and huge, not tall, just like the width of its shoulders, the muscles, legs. I freeze up and completely look at it, and I only get to see the thing's back and legs looking straight on. This thing was on the employee side, which makes no sense because the only way to do that is either leaping over the counter, which is right in front of me, or having a code to enter the employee entrance. I drop the money back into the register, lock it, and take the key out and pocket it. The key has never been removed in the near 2 years I'd worked here at Subway. I also paused my phone from playing music and dialed 911 in case I need to call for an intruder, even though I knew the building was locked. The only entrance 5 feet in front of my face. I feel ridiculous but also scared because what if someone had been hiding in the bathroom? I hadn't checked it before I locked up because no one had entered in the last hour. My brain is still processing as I walk to the back because in those few seconds I swear I saw that there were horns on top of its head. And I swear I saw hooves at the bottom of its legs. It reminds me of those credible Bigfoot videos of seeing it walk around and seeing the muscles flex under fur. Or seeing a big cat moving around and their muscles moving as they walk or run. I check the fridge and freezer and even have the courage to speak above them because there's a small storage area. There is nothing, so I peek into the bathroom holding my thumb over the call button. Despite knowing what I saw, my rational side is saying that it's a person, but there is nothing and I am alone in a Subway. I decided to ignore it because of the fear I'm feeling. My arm feels hot from my left shoulder down to my elbow. I wanted to get out of here, but I still have things to do, so I finish up my money counting and rush the mopping and turn the lights off. I set the alarm and rush to my car in near tears. Being out of the building doesn't help my nerves because I'm still alone and I'm in the open and it's dark. I drive home and it's less than a minute. I live 2 blocks away. Normally I walk, but it takes at least 5 minutes by foot. Despite only having to walk across the street through a parking lot and being between a nursing home and a church, I've had people come up to me in broad daylight and during the night and ask if I want to buy bad things. So to avoid it, I drive 30 seconds home because what happens if I say no to the wrong person? I feel like something is attached to me. My arm is still hot. I'm tearing up and breathing a little heavier than normal, and I go inside for a few minutes before I call my bestie. My friend A is at a new friend's house, S, who at the time I'd only met once or twice. Now 5 years later, S is as much as my best friend as A is, even though the two have had a falling out and don't talk anymore. I don't even think about bringing something into S's townhouse she's renting at the time. I just call A in tears and beg her to see me because I can't be alone. S lets me come over, and I drive over, and the warm feeling is still on me. My left ear is hot, and while the right feels ice cold. It's warm to the touch, and my thigh is hot, and I park and try to calm down. I walk a little faster than normal, but wait outside for S to open the door and sit on the couch next to A and spill it out. A looks at me and then stands up and sits on the floor to stare at me, and then I realize she isn't staring at me. She's looking at my left side with a knowing, angry, but annoyed look. I know she's not mad at me. A wouldn't be in a situation like this, so instead I test her. I ask her where it is. I told her that it had followed me home in the car but hadn't been able to enter the house. Again, the protection band on my family line and land protects me once again. She doesn't pause when she points and says, "Your left shoulder. It feels hot, right?" I tear up more and nod. S is still a little peeved that I brought something into her house and around her 2 cats, but seems pacified when A said that it will follow me. A stares at my left side for a few minutes before she tells me what she thinks it is. Well, in A's words, she knows what it is. Apparently, it was a creature from another dimension that was traveling through ours, and it was bored. I caught its attention when I noticed it, and if I ignored it for a few days, it'll go away on its own. So that's what I do. I go home for an hour or two later, ignore how my left side is hot and tingling, and it's gone by the end of the week. It does help that it doesn't enter my home, and the entire time it was there. To me, it looked like a goatman. It was around 5 foot to 5.5 feet. Its shoulders were large and muscular, with strong biceps and forearms. Its top half was dark and shaggy. It could have been a coat or fur. Its bottom half had strong muscular legs and deadly-looking hooves. The fur at its bottom half was more flattened than its top half. I couldn't see its hands, if it had any, or if it wore clothes like humans do. I didn't see its face or eyes. In a subway! Alright, let's read the final story from this follower. This happened about 1 to 2 months ago, right after my 27th birthday. I was at A's apartment, different one than her previous one. We had locked her 2 cats out of her bedroom and were using a spirit box that I had gotten while talking to each other, trying to get used to the noise and words so we could translate it. I was teasing A as I normally do, and I jokingly called her the B word. Sounds harsh, I know, but she called me the C word back, so our love is mutual. A few seconds after she had lovingly insulted me, we hear a clear male voice around static repeat, "Stupid B word." We pause, look at my box, and then look at each other and laugh, because no way did a spirit just repeat what one of us said, insulting A. We start asking questions to the spirit box, which said its name was Z, and it kept spelling out Z's name. A told me and spoke to Z and said it wasn't who it claimed to be. The spirit kept saying that it wanted to have relations with A, to sleep with A, and that it already had in a dream. It was all very separate words or 2-word sentences, like slept with A while sleeping or watch us, which the 2 of us refused. I'm asexual and A is just my friend. That made Z mad, and as long as it was able to keep talking to A, it mostly ignored me. It actually was annoyed with me and hated when we laughed at what it was saying. It said knew A in past life a few times also. When it started saying A was pregnant and kept insisting that A go to the bathroom, it wanted A to take a test. Spoiler, she was not pregnant. Eventually, we got bored with this and turned the spirit box off once Z started to get demanding and make sure to cleanse the space with my friend's crystals and candles. And the funny thing was, A was actually having those kinds of dreams involving a demon or something a few months before this happened. She was also sleeping with a guy that had stopped around 4 to 6 weeks before this and hadn't had her period. A was slightly convinced that we'd find out she was really pregnant. Oh my god. I wonder if it's the same Z as the Ouija board Z, because that was like it has to be. I feel like that was definitely the same Z, right? Anyways, that is that story. Thank you guys so much for joining me and hanging out with me. And yeah, and I will see you guys in a few days. All right, bye.